Hello YouTube. Today I'd like to bring to you for your reviewing pleasure a 1970s MPC release of Cale Yarborough driven, Junior Johnson owned Chevy Malibu race car. This one is actually a licensed product from Nascar International, so kind of cool to see the old NASCAR logo there. Looking around the box, we see some basic information on the car itself, motor information, tires, chassis, things like that. Coming around here to the side, we have the kit number, which is 1-1709. Coming around to the other side here, we can see the additional kits that were released in this series. So you can go ahead and pause that if you'd like. And one thing that is kind of nice or interesting is these were actually released by General Mills, same people that make breakfast cereal. So kind of an interesting thing. Go ahead and slide the parts to the back. We'll take a look here. So the instruction sheet, pretty straightforward. If you've built any of the older car models, they're pretty straightforward. The only difference is it does actually have you start with the body. Most of the time that is one of the latter steps that you do, but in this case it actually has you start there. So then you go through and paint up the interior, which I don't know if that would be correct for this car. It'd be interesting to see if you could find pictures of the interior to see if painting silver on the inside would be correct. Go ahead and move that down. Then moving on to the motor assembly. Getting the motor built, getting the wheels built up, going into the suspension work, the rear suspension, front suspension. Pretty much identical to most other older NASCAR kits of the day. So interior detail, showing the wheels, kind of interesting, showing the cutaway with the open wheel. And then going ahead, finishing up with the instrument cluster on the dash, rest of the roll cage, and then completion. So what's interesting is I have other kits that are fairly similar. Almost all of this up until this step and that first step are identical. And it's not like, okay, so this is a Cale Yarborough, Chevy Malibu. The other one's, another Chevy Malibu driven. The other one is actually a GTO. So the kits themselves were actually pretty generic. So just kind of interesting to note. Taking a look at the decals, it is interesting that they actually went ahead and for this paint scheme put it to where you just paint the whole car white and then the red is done on its own. Now, if you don't like this idea, if you happen to get this kit, say cheap or something like that, and your decals have been shot, or if you just don't know if you would trust this long of a decal to be good, or if you just don't even want to try to use something like that, there is other options. I have no affiliation with them. I just happened to purchase this for this kit. Blue Ridge decals, I have not actually used them, so I can't attest if they're good or not. But they did release a decal set for multiple drivers, but it includes this number 11 for the car care cars. So on the back here, you can see on the second decal sheet, you have the car care logos, the big KK on the hood, 427 up here on the front. So you can go ahead and actually use most of the decals, but there are a lot missing. Pretty much all of the contingency decals from this here are missing on here, along with the contingency decals here at the back as well. So, the lower contingency decal, and along with these Haynes, the NASCAR International, all of those are missing from this sheet. So if you actually want to build it correctly, you'll kind of have to bounce between the two to do that. But for the majority of the numbers, for the name, for the main hood decals, things like that, there are other options available. So if you would get, say, a later released Malibu or something like that, you can find decals for them. So just wanted to mention that. Diving into the kit itself, we'll start with the body, since that is the most noticeable thing about an auto kit. So just a standard Malibu. It does have the window net in. It does have the door seams and then the plated off door, which would have been correct from that era of NASCAR. The sad thing is they have also the underside here. It does have a couple of ejector pin marks, but it also has nice riveted detail for around the hood. So kind of nice there. Snap that down into place. Kind of get you a look of a completed Malibu. The blocked out tail lights, the tied down thing, and the other thing that is nice on this one is it also has, for the rear spoiler, it actually has a riveted on, or a riveted strengthening bar to position your rear spoiler. So go ahead and set the body out of the way. The chrome parts are actually dulled. I don't know if this was done intentionally, if this was a problem with the plating process. I know that to make it look more realistic, just spraying a dull coat across it will do that. It gets rid of kind of the toyish effect of chrome. But again, just kind of interesting that had been done on those parts. Bring up the white sprue here. And actually there was an additional chrome sprue here that has a couple of other parts, as well as one of the rims for this car. Used a bit of a different style rim on this car. Find the other one here in a little bit. Roll cage interior. Exhaust. Motor block. Pretty stock when it comes to kits. Front suspension. Firewall. This is where it's going to be a little bit different. There is actually the padding on all of the actual parts here. The other thing that's interesting is it does come molded with a window net. So I guess he had 2 window nets that year. I am saying that facetiously if you did not know. Also here you have our headers. Then you have the actual racing style of rim. Would have been the main steel rim that would have been used in NASCAR. Like I mentioned, this car does, in the pictures, actually use more of this 5-spoke style rim. However, it is a lot more deeply inset, so check your references if you're actually wanting to build this. Looking kind of through the box, because there is a lot of just miscellaneous parts dropped into here. You do have interior, the rims, a couple of rims that have fallen loose, and then your front valence and rear bumper here. So, the interior of the stock cars are actually pretty basic, and then actually 2-part chassis, which is kind of intriguing, but they are actually 2-part. So hopefully you've enjoyed just this kind of brief look and review of the Cale Yarborough Jr. Johnson Chevy Malibu from the early 70s.